that Christianity was born, right? When when the church was established in the first century, that became the world in which the Christians lived in all these different places we read about. Again, it wasn't the great place that was easy, where they didn't have to face much at all, but there were tremendous obstacles. Yet you think about the thing I just read about the world of that day and how Christianity really stood in opposition to that and offered, just think what Christianity offered to the family, everyone in the family, right? And how they treated others and what they were called to do. Again, you think there's bad things happening in the world today, which there are, but again, much of that is not new. You know, the Christians in the first century to whom the inspired writings were given faced a lot of obstacles in their society of their day. We also know there were persecutions against the early church. In the lifetime of the apostles, for example, let me see, we have two of these, and I'll mention these real quickly. Is the second bell rung yet? Okay, it's going in a minute, right? There were two main waves of persecution that swept the church. One was by Nero, and one was by Domitian. And one of the things that you find in this early persecution, and it's described by even some Roman historians, one named Tacitus, Christians they became seen as a distinct group or sect in the religious world. And Nero, we know that he was justly really detested because he was brutal. And many people feel like he probably set fire to the poor part of Rome, especially, and blaming on the Christians from what we know through history. But again, that's the kind of things that they would do. The Christians were often in this time period, under especially Nero, were put to death in horrendous ways. And one man named George Fisher wrote this. He said their deaths were made subjects of sport in many ways. They were covered with hides of wild beasts, and they were then fed to wild dogs that had not been fed. Nailed to crosses, they were set on fire, and sometimes they were burned at night for nocturnal lights at parties by especially those that were close to Nero or near himself, possibly. So again, that's the world that the Christians lived in the first century. I mean, terrible persecution. Yet what do we know about the church in the first century? Did it fizzle out?
No, it grew.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, right? It grew. And we'll talk about this next week. I'll let you go. And we do have a devotional in a few moments. Thank you for your attention and participation.